Hello, everyone. I am so happy to be back with you. Elevate your approach to business with Canadian business leaders through the Canada Business Talk series in association with our exclusive banking partner, RBC, shipping partner, UPS, accounting software partner, Xero, and our exclusive email partner, Constant Contact. Hospitality partner, IHG Business Edge, and bronze partner, F12.net. I am Alyssa Lansdale, your media host for Canadian SME Business Magazine. I founded Rockstar Communications in 2020 as a way to unite my distinct passions and strengths in the leadership, communications, and media spaces. Now, since 2011, I've had the pleasure and privilege of helping hundreds of, maybe even over 1,000 now, leaders across the globe influence their teams and stakeholders with authenticity and impact. Now, I would like to begin. We've got a very exciting guest today. I want to start by acknowledging the land on which we gather and on the region of Peel on which it operates as part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. For thousands of years, Indigenous peoples have inhabited and cared for this land and continue to do so today. In particular, we acknowledge the territory of the Anishinaabe, the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Ojibwe. The land that is home to the Métis and most recently the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, who are direct descendants of the Mississaugas of the Credit. We're grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land, and by doing so, we give our respect to its first inhabitants. Our mission at Canadian SME is to provide essential resources, tools, facts, and data to anyone aspiring to start a business in Canada. We are dedicated to advancing small-scale entrepreneurs, contributing to not only the Canadian economy, but also our global reputation. Our magazine recognizes and celebrates the hard work of entrepreneurs and helps them gain the recognition they deserve. Additionally, our events like SME Awards, the Small Business Show, and Small Business Summit provide a unique platform for small business owners to share their success stories and inspire others. Last year marked a significant milestone for us with the launch of Indigenous SME Business Magazine. This publication is a testament to our commitment to celebrating the unique histories and contributions of our Indigenous communities. And together with Canadian SME and Indigenous SME Business Magazine, we continue to empower and uplift our diverse small business community. So welcome to Canada Business Talks, where we are committed to fostering growth and success in the business world. In collaboration with esteemed partners like RBC, Xero, Constant Contact, IH Business Edge, and F12, we bring you insights from top Canadian business leaders to elevate your ventures. Our esteemed guest today, Monica Kretschmer, is founder and CEO of the Universal Women's Network, Women of Inspiration Awards and Support Her, which elevates allies to the conversation to advance women in business. She has a litany of many different projects and accomplishments. We're going to be talking to her about that, including Women of Inspiration book, You Women magazine. She's a visionary. She's a trailblazer. So I can't wait for you to meet her and for us to have a chat with her. Before we do, I want to thank our sponsors, our banking partner, RBC, our shipping partner, UPS, our accounting software partner, Xero, for supporting this initiative, our exclusive email sponsor, Constant Contact, our hospitality partner, IHG Business Edge, and our bronze partner, F12.net. Now, if you're a small business owner in Canada, you can apply to be featured as the UPS Small Business of the Day. This is pretty cool. Every day, Canadian SME Small Business Magazine, with support from UPS, our exclusive shipping partner, features a different small business on our social media channels. So as the UPS Small Business of the Day, you'll receive a free promotion on Canadian SME social media channels. You only have to apply. And you can find more information here at canadiansme.ca. All right, so now we're going to take a short break and see what's in store for you by our exclusive sponsors, UPS and Xero.
You dreamt big. You made the leap. You and your "we're not stopping at small" business. Doesn't matter you've never done it before. You unlock those problems. You adapt to change. You learn to evolve. You're pioneers in challenging times, finding your own frontiers. Wherever you e-commerce, UPS is with you. So nothing is going to hold you back.
When you own a small business, every second counts. 120 seconds to add the finishing touches. 900 seconds to arrange the displays. If you're short on time for marketing, Constant Contact's powerful tools can help. Everything is in one platform. From email and SMS messaging to managing social posts and more, marketing your business has never been quicker because all it takes is 30 seconds to make someone stay. Get started today at ConstantContact.com, helping the small stand tall.
All right. I'd now like to invite Balkan Faraj, Relationship Manager for Business Markets at RBC, for her welcome remarks. Balkan specializes in relationship management, including working with startups and existing businesses to support their financing and expansion plans and needs. Along with her team, she also helps businesses expand their products and services to international markets by linking them to RBC global trade networks and so much more. Prior to working at RBC, Balkan worked in a variety of positions in industries like oil and gas, finance, retail, and commercial construction. And she spent a good portion of her career working in Belgium, North Dakota, Texas, Ontario, and Quebec. I don't know if you're plotting all those points on your map, but it's a very, very impressive geographical range. She takes a lot of pride in working for RBC. The opportunity for growth and to experience new innovations every day is truly a blessing to her, and she looks forward to continuing to be part of such an eye-opening community that continues to grow, just like the entrepreneurs she's had the privilege of meeting and working with every day. Our pleasure to have you here. Welcome, Balkan.
Hi, so my name is Balkan Faraj, and I'm very pleased to be here on behalf of RBC to welcome you to Canada Business Talks, hosted by Canadian SME Magazine. In today's ever-evolving business landscape, small businesses face a unique set of challenges. Volatile economic conditions, along with rapid advancement of technology, interconnections of global trades markets, and have transformed the business environment, making it more complex and competitive. For entrepreneurs, this means that starting and sustaining a small business now demands resilience, adaptability, and a keen understanding of technologies and global trends that this sometimes feels very overwhelming to navigate alone. Now, more than ever, it is critical for us to come together to hear your different perspectives and stories and support you with the resources, solutions, and advice you need to survive and thrive. RBC's continued commitment to supporting Canada's Business Talk series feels much more important and purposeful today. We are thrilled to see Canadian Small Business Magazine take the lead in bringing thoughts leaders, entrepreneurs, and co-sponsors such as UPS, Xero, Constant Contact, and IHG Business Edge together to create this important forum. We hope these engaging conversations will deliver great insights to help entrepreneurs successfully navigate the complexities of business landscapes. For challenges also brings opportunity, an opportunity to learn, adapt, innovate, and grow. Today, it's my pleasure to welcome Monica Kretschmer, founder and CEO of Universal Women Network, the Women of Inspiration Award, and support her with all overall mission to connect, inspire, and empower women and allies. She is the host of the Women's Inspirational podcast and publisher of You Women magazine and Women Inspirational book. With a focus on recognition, media, and education, Monica and her team make significant strides in advancing the agenda of gender equality. For her business launch in 2014, the leadership demonstrates by Monica at Universal Women Network serves a prime example of how commitment, tendency, cooperation can bring significant change. Monica believes in a visible role model are essential for learning, inspiring, and breaking barriers. Through her Women of Inspiration program and the Women Inspiration book, she shares and celebrates celebrates accomplishments of women who lead, inspire, and motivate the networks, workplace, and communities they live and work in. I'm looking forward to hearing more about Monica's story and the developing her business and how it has become today. Once again, I would like to thank Canadian SME and our co-sponsors and all of you for joining us today on this program to uncover, celebrate, inspire, and the individuals like Monica who make it real. With that, I would like to hand it over to Alyssa.
Thank you so much, Falcon. I'm excited too. And so, yes, I would like to welcome Monica.
Here I am. I'm live.
Hey.
Thank you so much for the wonderful intro, Alyssa and Balkan. I'm really honored to be here and have this opportunity to share my story.
Well, what a story it is. I mean, I know that you've said a couple things that have really stuck with me. One thing is that, your story doesn't define you, it empowers you. And you have quite the story. I can't wait to dig a little deeper into it. You refer to your personal story as this 7-year journey involving 4,800 hours of litigation, 22 days of trial in family court. And this is what led to the creation of the Universal Women's Network, right? Tell us more about that.
So it's really interesting because the name of this talk is about resilience. And I think that word was something that really rang true for me. I've interviewed so many women over the past decade now. We're celebrating our 10th year this year. And one thing I know for certain is that every woman has a story, right? And this is where that comes from. Every woman has a story. Your story does not define you, it empowers you. And I think that it's a life experiences that you go through that actually, this is where you get your power from, right? And so in my personal story, that was leaving my marriage. Little did I know after a 15-month marriage that would be a 7-year journey through the court system. That was, the 4,800 hours, 22 days of trial, all the way to Supreme Court. And, that was just the tip of the iceberg. I hate to say that was the tip of the iceberg. That's what I talk about the most, but it was another 7 years past that point. So it's really interesting because I think those defining moments in our life experiences give us the strength and the courage and almost this sense of you're invincible, right?
Yeah.
You're like,
Yes.
Nothing can stop me now. I'm prepared to take whatever on. And I think that's what brought me to the point. I wanted to make a change.
Yes, I love this. And I'm a big fan of saying this didn't happen to me, it happened for me. And once you shift that change and you say, this is here to empower me, then you start looking for the why, right? Or how rather, how is this going to empower me? How, is this going to help me in my journey? So I love that in itself is so inspiring. What inspired you to support her? And I like this capital HER. And why is allyship important in terms of advancing women in business? I know you're big on allyship.
So initially, way back in the very beginning, it was about building the network where every woman's voice belonged. And Woman of Inspiration was created for my lawyer. And so highlighting the achievements of women, and the world was all about women and putting women front and center.
Yeah.
And as I became to, grow the business, and, my son, he was, a baby when I had left, 7 years when I started the business. And as he was growing up, I was leaving the home. I was putting him into the care of other people. And I was out the door, running down the street, promoting women. And I was like, so we've got role models for women, but where are the role models for our boys? Where are all the good guys? And ironically, at that time was at the height of the Me Too. You couldn't turn on a news channel, open up a newspaper, or scan social media without seeing the impact of the men that were not, how would you say, allies? The ones that pull women down rather than pull them up. And I'm
Right.
like, where are all the role models? Because let's focus on those men. Let's focus on bringing them to the conversation. So it was really something that was personal to me because I wanted my son to have a good influence. But then more talking to women in leadership roles, they're like, thank you. Because I've always really had a whole group of male allies that have helped me achieve the 5%, right? And that's something that wasn't talked about as much, was the help that women had to get to those senior leadership roles, because we just didn't have those role models in those positions of power. So
Right.
that's really where Support Her came from. And it was, how can we elevate the men that are champions for women? Forget about the ones that don't. I always say
Right.
there's three buckets: the ones that get it and doing something about it, the ones
Yeah.
that get it, don't know what to do, but want to participate. And then the third, let's just
Yeah.
focus on the top two.
Yes. I agree with that. And not to get controversial, but I think this is really, it's beneficial to frame around what's happening right now currently
Mhm.
with this discussion, this viral discussion about the bear, right? And it's like, are you going to, yeah, who are you more comfortable with in a room? And I believe that has illuminated those three buckets of men. Over categorize everybody, but I think that a lot of them are saying, well, okay, hold on, how do I help? So this has really begun to foster a discussion that to me is overdue. It's needed. As you say, there's ones who want to help but don't know how, and you're giving them that opportunity here.
There's so much work to do. And,
Yeah.
I have to say, even when I started talking about it 5 years ago, I had people tell me, what? You have a women's network. What are you talking about? Focus on women. That would be, why are you focusing on the men? And it was almost like I had to really, you know, think deeply on, is this the right move for me? And,
Mhm.
I kind of thought back to, my values and, what, if it's not being done, why? Right? If it's not being done, somebody's got to do it. And so I've always subscribed to I might as well just do it. If I crash and burn, that's fine, but this is meaningful to me and I haven't stopped. And it seems like 5 years has, flown by and starting that conversation, but it's really encouraging to see people talk about support hers, like I have a support her, and that could be a man or woman.
Sure. Exactly. It doesn't matter. We just need the allies. And you're right. We need to bring them into the room. I've taught leadership courses to women's courses, and I often thought, where are the men that we're talking about? Where are the men that are here that could help? They need to hear. They need to be part of this conversation. So I'm thrilled. Um, How would you define success for small businesses? So many people watching right now are either just beginning, with a small business, and particularly for women. What are some of these key performance indicators, for lack of a better term? What does success mean?
I think success is so personal and different for everyone.
Mhm.
And, a lot of times, people think of the financial success. But I think success really ends up being something that you wake up and you're still motivated, right? You're still motivated to do more. I think that personal satisfaction is so essential. And from an entrepreneur, I mean, you have to have some fuel in the fire to keep going, right? So I don't actually think that you achieve this level of success and you're like, I've been there, I've done that. I think you just go on to the next because you continually evolve. And I think part of that success is that you don't stop, you keep going.
Yes, there's always a
There's
new
always
level
something more
to
to achieve.
hit. And you talked about how, nobody's doing this, but it needs to be done. I think that's one of the things, that's probably how you know you're motivated, or how you know you're
Mm.
motivated the right way, I guess, right? It's not necessarily easy, but it's the stuff that you really care about.
Sometimes I think, why can't you choose something easy?
Yeah.
But to me, I looked at, how can we make a big impact? And it almost seemed like the obvious elephant in the room. It's like 50% of the population, invite them to be part of the solution, right? Instead of focusing on, because I truly do believe women, we have so much power. And, our collective voices really can do so much. But without the support of our allies, it's just like men and women working together is diverse perspectives, but it also, it just fuels that. I mean, you can't walk up that mountain, move that mountain alone.
No, absolutely. I think that's a big key for anybody starting out on their own. We feel like we have to do it all. I think when we start a small business, especially women, and I think is that your experience? I mean, you talk to them on your podcast. Is that we feel like we have to have a hand in everything to control it?
Well, I think in the very beginning, we do it all, regardless.
Yeah.
And, we try and put up this armor that we know what we're doing. And to be honest with you, we wear all hats, and there's people that are experts in every industry. And yet, as an entrepreneur, we go out there and we put on this brave face that we know what the heck we're doing. And, I think that we have to dismantle a little bit of that, why are we having to be so fearless? And I think we had a conversation in the green room about that. And, I was sharing with you in my last trip to New York, I went to see the Fearless Girl, and she was standing there alone. And I literally teared up because I'm like, why do we have to be alone? Why is that all of a sudden the symbol of, courage is that we're alone and we're fearless? Why can't we be surrounded by people that are cheering us on? And why is it okay? Or why can't we ask for help? Right? It's a sign of strength, not weakness. And so I would really love that Fearless Girl to have like an army around her. I don't want her to be fearless. I don't want her to do it alone anymore. Like I
Yes.
just, it hit me really hard there. And I thought, what message are we sending really?
It's so true. The stories that we tell, so many women feel like independence is this badge of honor, and it can be. It's a nice trait to have. But I think you're right. It's like we kind of lose ourselves in all of this because we feel like it's a weakness to draw on the community around us. And as you say, they're there. We just need to find them.
Well, and it was interesting because you and I also had another conversation. And you're like, do you have a story to share? Or, our last Woman of Inspiration Awards, I made a really, really strategic, really bold move to have a powerhouse female entrepreneur, but also invite her, support her. I wanted that conversation to be men and women working together towards a common goal. I wanted to see the strength of a woman who has achieved, globally, global
Yeah.
success. But I also wanted to see how she did it. And
Yeah.
she said, I didn't do it alone. We don't talk about that enough. We don't talk about the support networks and the systems that we have around us that are supporting us, cheering us on, that are carrying us through the really, it's like a roller coaster, carrying us through those really low times in order to see the high times. And so Bobby Brown and her husband, Stephen Floker, were, our keynote speakers. And, the conversation that we had, I put her front and center in the spotlight. And, she really was honest about it. She goes, I wouldn't be here if I didn't have the support of my husband. And I think that conversations need to start happening more about that, because it's not just, and it on the flip side too, he says, I couldn't have done what I did without her support. And so I think it's really important to showcase, have those conversations. Men and women have work balance. We talk about work-life balance for women. I know a lot of single dads and they have that same struggle, but nobody asks them, right? We're not really that much different.
Right. No, not at all. I think it's really interesting when you mentioned Bobby Brown and her husband. I thought I had no idea how key he was to her success. And that in itself is interesting, isn't it? That, we can have these almost silent supporters who really lift us. Part of our community, I mean, especially if it's a marriage kind of a partnership, but that's okay because you will hold each other up in different ways. You will borrow from each other what you need. I think that's lovely. And I remember Sheryl Sandberg saying that in Lean In, like, find yourself a great partnership. Like, it's not just about getting married and having kids.
A
right?
business partner in life. Find yourself a great business partner in life. And, I think back, if I would have done that the first time, I would have been way farther ahead.
Girl, don't get me started on that. Yes, it's true, right? But we learned this is happening for us, not to us, as I said. Now, tell me about, we've talked a little bit about it, I think, inherently, but common challenges faced by women entrepreneurs. Obviously, one of them is, the lack of asking for help. But what are some others that you see?
So I think, I thought about this one, and for me, there's a couple big ones. And it's like a chicken and the egg. It's like access to capital and visibility. And so, if you're not visible, people can't, buy your products or services. If you don't have the access to capital, you can't build your business. And there's the tech element in there too. But I think if we just want to, pick a couple real big ones, it's marketing and visibility is super important. And then having that access to capital. And I find that those are the biggest barriers, because when you are starting a business, you have to prove yourself. You have to prove yourself time and time and time again. And you think that you get to a certain level, and then you have to prove yourself again. And, COVID, I'm going to talk about experience. I mean, COVID leveled the playing field during that time, which was a beautiful gift, because the people that were actually used to pivoting, being nimble, actually were able to come out on top. And move through it quite easily. And I have another thing about women doing it better during that time as well.
Yeah. Oh, and why? I'm interested in that. Yeah. Why do you think?
So going through the pandemic, as women, wearing multiple hats, I mean, we saw the effects of, that balance with the home life and the business life, and, how much more work, or in most cases, I'm not going to say in all cases, where the lion's share of the work was really on the woman. And, we've always worked just that much harder to get everything that we have. And so when the pandemic came, we've already running for the past 100 years fast and, dodging this. We've, we're used to running at that speed and coming up with solutions to problems like lightning speed. So when the pandemic came, it's almost like we were really conditioned the most to take on the pandemic. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't pleasant, but you go into this, I'm going to call it a resilience mode, where you flex your resilience muscles, and then you just stop, you assess, you find a solution, and you take action. And I think that's what a lot of women did with their businesses during COVID, even with the workplace, right? I mean, I saw some really amazing things that had happened that couldn't have happened without the pandemic.
It's true. Yes. Yeah, you're absolutely right. A lot of success stories there. And then there were, I know a lot of my clients, it was a little easier. You've got your child in the next room while you're working. You don't have to worry about the commute. You don't have to worry about pick up, drop off, all that stuff. There are other things to worry about. But as you say, women have that momentum that's just built in, right? Yes. So as the host, I want to talk about your podcast. I'm
Okay.
interested in, some key insights or lessons, because you've met so many people through there. Any patterns sort of emerging, or specific lessons that have come out of all of these discussions?
So ironically, during the pandemic, when, the world stopped, I didn't have a podcast. And that was
Mm.
something that I wanted to do. It was on my list of, I had a great big vision board, and I had a book, I had a magazine, I had a podcast, I had all of these things that were, somewhere in the next 10 years or whatever. That was 10 years ago. And I decided now was the time to tell the stories, because everything was virtual. And so, we launched the Woman of Inspiration podcast. We got the trademark and, out the door flying and telling the stories. And I knew the importance of the stories because of the awards. We have a
Mm.
nomination package, and a lot of times, like, the packages that our nominees put through are beyond incredible. We ask them to tell their story. And, the stories that they have, just like my story, everybody has a story, and it really does ring true. So I think probably one of the most impactful things is that, number one, we can offer that visibility for that story, right? I mean, people fall in love with the founder's story all the time. It's so important. The founder's story, why you're doing what you're doing. You kind of lose it a little bit when you get to these great big companies, but when you have a small business, there's a choice between A and B. And, people get to choose where they spend their money. And so if you can come through as being authentic, and I know that's a big word for you, and you've interviewed, thousands of people as well, but that authenticity, that story behind it, the person that's actually, sacrificing, stepping out, being bold, like there's a bigger purpose within them. And that's the business. And those stories come through all the time. Like it's just, I get lots and lots of feedback, and they're like going, those stories pulled me through my tough times. And why? Because it's relatable.
Yes.
Everybody goes through the hard times. And, sometimes listening to some of the stories with some of the women saying, sharing their journeys helps other people right now in that moment where they just need something that inspires them to keep going. And there's been numerous stories through the awards where that, people are like, why am I even nominated? Because they're at this low point and people are seeing them at the high point, but they themselves behind the scenes are at the low point. And, it's kind of interesting because having conversations with them even afterwards are like going, that pulled me through. The awards pulled me through. The podcast pulled me through. But it's about relatability.
Yeah, relatability. And also it sounds like what you're describing is, the vulnerability. When we are vulnerable in our authentic skin and share that, it might feel a little bit hard. It's hard for us, but we can do hard things, as Glennon Doyle says. But I feel like that may be the thing that people latch onto the most, right?
I
That
love the vulnerability.
Yeah.
And, we're working on a little project behind the scenes, as I sent you a little bit of a deck that
yes,
really
very
showcases
exciting.
that, and we need to see visible role models.
Yes.
And role models come in every size, shape, and form in every industry. There is so many inspirational women, and let's just say men as well, that are truly doing some great work out there, but we just don't know their stories. The vulnerability piece is super impactful. Not all the times do people want to share. They've never told their story before. It affects other people. Sometimes they're not willing to share. But I find that when you peel back the layer of the onion, that story is so impactful. And the project that we have that we want to work on is bringing those stories actually to life, where we see the impact of the people that they've impacted, but also we tell the stories of the support hers that help them on their journey. So I think there's more to come.
I love that because, especially my female clients, I like to say, we don't celebrate our wins enough, right? Like we just assume as women, of course I did that. Of course I had to do that. That's part of my job description, or, that's just, of course I had to. But we don't stop to say, hey, I did that. So I do see great value in that, in sharing our stories that way, just for ourselves and for our audience. You talked about this. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, jumping right in there, why celebrate the achievements of women? Because we need to see the role models.
Yes.
But when you shine the spotlight on the individuals, it's hard. I haven't met one woman, well, maybe one. I think that was Hazel McCallion. Comes back to imposter syndrome.
Powerful. Yes.
And I said, have you experienced imposter syndrome? And the only person that I've ever interviewed that had said in one word, no, was Hazel McCallion. That's it.
I believe it.
She's like, no. And I'm like, I was almost like grasping for words because I'm like, what's that follow-up question to that? Because usually there's some sort of deeper dive into the answer. And it was that's it. I'm like, drop the mic. We better close up here. But I think that piece of shining the spotlight is that ego. And, I have so many conversations of helping women get past that piece as well, because it's not about boasting, I'm great, look at me. It's not about that. It's about the people behind you. They need to know the sacrifices. They need to know, what things you did great, what things held you back. Like those things need to happen. And unless you stand into the spotlight and share that, nobody else can do the same.
It's so true. When we shine our light, we allow others to shine theirs. That goes back to the Marianne Williamson poem, Our Deepest Fear.
Yes.
Look it up for those who are listening.
I love it. We have that on our screens.
Yes.
Moment of inspiration, several years.
Yes, of course. And I believe it's really important because women are much more, the stats show women are much more likely to lift each other up than themselves. which is a sad thing we're trying to fix. Obviously, you're doing a lot of work to rectify that. But if that's what spurs women to share their stories and their success, then wonderful, right? It's never a bad thing. So that's, I mean, I was talking to you about the biggest challenges and visibility being one of them. That's one of the solutions. What else would you say? What are some, especially for women who are just starting right now, beginning a new business, they need to be visible. They don't know where to start. What are some things they can do?
Well, you know what? I think probably one of the hardest things and it's like a double-edged sword is, technology right now. Like there's Instagram, there's TikTok, there's X or Twitter, there's Facebook. You know, we've got some marketing tools here, but you can spend so much time and maybe you don't even see an ROI on that. It's about the
Right.
visibility piece.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the areas is pick one thing that you really like to do. I mean, I put my hands in way too many cookie jars, to be honest.
Mhm. Right.
I did all of them, and not so great all the time. I find that I have certain ones that I like. I think that my advice, because that's a big piece of your business, right?
Yeah.
As you develop your brand. And I think I'll go back to even the biggest piece of advice is to know what your brand stands for. When I launched my business, I knew that I wanted to have build a foundation with core values. And my core values were my personal core values. So that I kind of built as a foundation for the company because I felt that that was kind of a guiding light. So courage, confidence, commitment, and integrity. Those got me through the 7 years. That became the foundation of the company. Then I went to my branding. I made sure that my branding was consistent. Like I branded and the dot coms, I researched trademarks. Like you have to be able to identify at that point from out of the gate before you've done it all where you want to be. Like that big vision is so important.
Oh,
And so I remember when I first started, and I'll share this with you, Woman of Inspiration was owned by Avon. Like the trademark was owned by Avon. And I love the name and the awards and,
yeah.
standing on that stage in 2015, there was only 200 people in the room celebrating one woman. And that was the first Woman of Inspiration Awards. And after that very first awards, it was like deer in headlights. People were like, well, I have a woman of inspiration that inspires me. And so that's where it really started very, very organically. And it's, spanned, 5 continents. We've celebrated over 1,000 women, like internationally. We just had North America awards. Like it's growing. But I always had that vision, that woman of inspiration. After that moment, I knew we had something to build. But I also put that in as a celebration pillar of the company. Strategically, is the awards, Woman of Inspiration. I also did the trademarks. I mean, that one wasn't available right away, but it did come up 5 years later. So you have to build those things in. IP is really, really important. Having your branding is super important, and be consistent with that. I think that's probably my word of advice is be very clear on your branding.
Yes, and yeah, which is kind of hard. And I mean, not to say they can't evolve. I'm almost hearing everybody at home like is just starting. Like I don't know, maybe I don't have it all in order. But you drew a nice connection between that vision and the branding. You've got to know what that North Star is. You can, there may be some adjustments, but if you know where you're going, then your brand is going to be solid.
That's where I love to play. I love to play in that big vision. My brain automatically goes to way out here. And some of my advisors like, scale it back, scale it back. But, and that was the reason we rebranded in 2019, Universal Women's Network, because you can't get bigger.
No,
in the
exactly.
universe.
It's that time of year, but everything is all of the different things you are doing. Obviously, are very solid in terms of your brand. We know your fingerprint is on them, as it were. One of those things is You Women magazine. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and its role in amplifying the voices of women in business?
So that again was another way of telling the story. And so during the pandemic, launched the podcast to tell those stories and really be able to reach, wherever. I could be anywhere in the world and be able to tell a story and somebody else can jump on. That was impactful. Then I wanted to find a way. Well, actually, the book came before the magazine. So we did the book, again, the stories of women, but in a form of a book. The magazine was an opportunity for not only the stories to be told, but for companies to be visible. I had probably about 1,000 phone calls with CEOs. I started at Fortune, worked my way down. And one thing that I found was that a brand had a logo on their website about championing for women, but they didn't have a way of actually showing the impact. They didn't have a way of elevating the leaders. They didn't have a way of telling that the why behind it's important of advancing women in their workplace, or that brand, why it's important. So I thought the magazine would be a great opportunity that would tell the stories of business leaders, but also have companies as well that are telling that brand story. So that was my vision for the Women magazine. There's not just women in the magazine. Again, back to the branding, you women. I was very strategic when we did the rebrand: black, gold, white. There is no pink. There is no purple.
Beautiful.
I didn't even think I have that in my wardrobe, to be honest.
Love it.
It is neutral and it embraces all genders. And so I really wanted to make sure that inclusive culture was weaved in, just like it was in the DNA in the very beginning. And the equal bars and men.
Yes.
Men was very clear. And do I have here? Hold on a sec. So you see that? It's like
Yes.
WO men. So there's our support hers.
Beautiful.
And we're doing it together, right? So again, back to the branding piece. But it allowed me the opportunity to grow that brand, keeping the brand intact while still being able to, develop the messaging on other initiatives that we have.
I love this. And you said something just kind of offhandedly that I thought this is something that bears repeating. You said you started at the Fortune and worked your Fortune 500 companies and worked your way down.
I did.
And that in itself is such a powerful thing for women to do. Think big, start big, and work your way down if you must.
Well, and to be honest with you, during the pandemic, LinkedIn, I was able to connect with people. They were interested to talk to me. And, the conversation went, hey, how's COVID? How are you doing through the pandemic? For about a minute. And then I
Right.
said, let's get down to talking about how we can actually champion women. What are you doing to advance women in your company? And we had some really great conversations and I learned a lot. And so some of the initiatives like the magazine, how we built the awards so that we have Woman of Inspiration awards, we have Support Her awards, and then also top companies. The top companies was a way for our companies that are equity, diversity, inclusion champions that foster that inclusive network, to be Support Her champions, because we want those workplaces that say, hi, we are committed to advancing women, but we don't want to leave. We want everybody to belong. And so those companies have an opportunity to showcase the programs that they're doing. And so there's some great work that's being done out there. We just don't see it.
Right. I love that you're making that more visible. I'm interested in how men have responded to what you're doing, and what's their take.
So I have had, like, probably bar none, the best conversations with the men. And number one, they're like, thank you. The very, very first thing that they say is thank you. And then they start by saying, I have a woman who inspires me. That's the second thing. And then they talk about whether they were raised by a single mom or some other female figure in their life or their daughters. There's always some really strong, inspiring women in their world, their wives, proud as could be, but they've never been asked.
Yeah.
Right. And they're like, thank you for asking. They walk into rooms. I hear stories where they walk into rooms and all of a sudden they don't know that they're a Support Her. or that they were raised by a single mom, or, a champion and, for, a female in their family, perhaps their wife or their partner or their daughter. And, it's all of a sudden, there's a bias there. Like we have to dismantle that as well. Not looking at men as being, like, give people a chance and, have that conversation. And I really love having the conversation with men and women together.
You find more of a robust discussion comes out of that?
Oh, it's fantastic. The conversations that I've had just with men, tell me about their imposter syndrome. It's fantastic. They talk about work-life balance and going, everybody depends on us, right? It needs to happen more.
Absolutely. Well, and you are doing this, you are facilitating this in so many ways. What is next for you? Like, what is coming up? What's your next goal? Because I know you've always, as you say, you got to keep moving, you got to keep having new goals. What's
So,
coming up?
I think we're on year 10, and I think evolving the network really in a strategic way where I hate to say it, but I believe we need to move past like women's only networks, to be
Mhm.
honest.
Okay.
And I know that's a conversation that some people are like, is she crazy or what? Perhaps, but I see that if we don't welcome everybody to the table, I don't know how much further we're going to get. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And
Yeah.
so, I understand that it's kind of, again, one of these great big things, but the Universal Women's Network, I want to evolve that brand so we really harness the power of women and men working together
Mm.
for the common goal. Still celebrating women's achievements, still celebrating men, those top companies, but it's the together piece. It's the
Yes.
not us versus them, it's we together, because together we are stronger. And so, I've got some plans for a Support Her Summit, the first in the world. Like, I want to have a Support Her Summit where, we intentionally carve out those conversations with the CEOs leading these companies. The people in positions of power have so much power,
Yes.
right? In their conversations, they move the workplaces. And so I want to have a Support Her Summit. I want that to be the first of many to do. We've launched our awards, and of course, New York City's on our radar for the awards. Like, again, celebrating the leaders, celebrating women that have achieved great things. And I think that probably one of the most important things for me is that everybody's included. It's those rooms are meant to be open to the public. They're meant to be accessed by every single person to be inspired. I think that there's so much, trauma in the world right now. And some of the beautiful stories that we have that really carries through the worst times in our life are shared by people that have been through it. So I just want to be able to harness that power and tell more stories.
Yes, you need to. The world needs you, because what you're describing, the word that kept coming to mind as you're talking about this is belonging.
Mm.
And that's such a huge, weighty topic and word. But what you're describing is a place where everyone belongs, right? And we all have a role in that discussion. So I think that's just
And
beautiful.
we need help. Like, honestly, when you talk
Yes.
about the barriers, like, I
Yes.
am not out of the woods here yet. Like, I am year 10, and it feels like I'm constantly reinventing. And I think, in the conversations with entrepreneurs and whoever's listening, I don't think you ever get out of that, because you are constantly evolving. And one of my mentors said, here's a set of tools that you're going to work at to get to your first, $1 million, $5 million, $20 million. Everything that you've learned to get to that one point, it's almost like the slate's cleared, the
Yeah.
rug is ripped out,
Right.
and then you've
You're on
got
the next
a
level.
whole new set of tools. And so I think that's really important too, is to understand that, we're constantly, entrepreneurs are a different breed, man. There's grit, there's perseverance, there's determination, there's courage, there's all of that, but you have to be really adaptable and understand that you're going to constantly grow, and it's probably never going to be completely comfortable. You're going to have to get
No, it
used to
shouldn't be.
being uncomfortable.
Exactly. Get comfortable being uncomfortable, because I believe that's a key, an indicator that you're doing the right thing. Like you're doing what you're meant to be doing if you keep challenging yourself. Because if you're really not into it, then you're good to coast, right? Like,
Mm.
I'll just let that be. I achieved this one milestone. I'm done. But I really believe that we need to always be challenging ourselves, as you say, to level it up.
And, this evolution, welcoming the men to the conversation. To me, it's like almost like breathing. Why haven't we done that before? Why
You
haven't
really,
we done that before? And
yeah.
so I want to really champion and lead that. And I think there's a lot of work we can do. So if there's men listening, yeah, we need our
Yes.
support, hers on board. And we work with companies as well that have, come to me and said, I have a team of white men. I'm like, great. Let's put that front and center. We have a team of white men that are champions for women. Let's turn it around.
Yes, right? There's such power in that, right? It's essentially you're changing their brand right there in that moment. I love that. And so where, you're 10 years in now.
Yep.
Let's look ahead another 10 years. Do you have, I know you think big, so what's that going to look like ideally?
Oh my goodness. Gosh, I think I shared, probably evolving a little bit more of the network. I'd like to be, North America, like really deep into North America. I've always thought the UK would be really great. But when we talk about harnessing that power, I think that, you know, I don't think I just see the universe, the global. I want to have that really big global brand. I want to be able to make an impact and, have everybody else rise with that. That's my vision. I see that there's a big media piece to it. I think we can do more stories. I know that I've shared with you a little bit of that pitch deck that I have. I'd love to see that really, make some change. Like I think that we have the ability, and the stories are not being told right now. Like mainstream stories are not being told. I've seen 100, you know, um, renovation shows. I'd like to see a show about transformation, about the stories and the impact. And I'd really like to build that.
I love that, because yes, the story, that's what lights up a human brain, are stories like these, and certainly stories where we see ourselves. So I'm going to encourage everybody to listen to the podcast for one thing. That's a wonderful way to kind of just get a little glimpse into the world of women and women supporters, and what the challenges are, because there are very many common themes. So thank you so much. Oh, hang on, we have two questions from the audience before I let you go. I was going to let you go and do all of that stuff you're talking about, but as a small business owner, someone has shared, I often struggle with managing remote teams efficiently. Do you have any tips or best practices for remote work productivity and team collaboration? Yeah, that can be tough when you're not all in the same room together. What do you think, Monica?
Uh, you know, that's that's probably the hardest thing to do. Just because you can't have the in-person get-togethers. I guess it's the consistency. And I mean, I've certainly not been the greatest at times of that. Like I've learned just like everybody else has. And it's like a constant check-in, right? I mean, probably one of the hardest things is making sure that everybody's included. And so, I've been told that I like to talk. So I've been really practicing the art of being quiet and, letting other people take the stage. So really engaging them and letting them do all the talking rather than me do talking, because I do like to talk. So I guess that's one thing too, is that the engagement piece I think would be really important. And so the more actively they're engaged, the more that's going to help sort of mesh everybody together.
Beautiful. Yeah, just check-ins, as you say, and then
Mhm.
just holding space, as they say, to listen. Which is, it's interesting. I have so many clients who will say, like, I wonder how they're taking this. I wonder how they're doing. And it's shocking to many when I say, here's something crazy. How about, yeah, this
Mm.
is how
But I
it's
don't think
going.
I don't think we're going to get away from that ever. Like that remote thing is here to stay.
It's
And I
here.
think
Yeah.
there's going to be constantly new ways of engaging and communicating with your team. I just think that, it's here to stay. Just, ask,
Yeah.
ask for feedback, right? That's another simple thing to do, is ask for feedback.
Yeah, that goes to what you said at the very beginning, full circle, ask for help. We need to ask for
Mhm.
help and input. And so that's a wonderful way to do it. Great advice. Check-ins, engaging, holding space. I have a second question here. Monica, you mentioned the importance of mentorship and networking for women entrepreneurs. How can small business owners, regardless of gender, cultivate meaningful mentorship relationships and expand their professional networks? I think that, underscore meaningful, right? Because
Yeah.
we can all go and network, but how do we make it meaningful?
So, okay, there's a couple different things. I think you have to find somebody that and I've had so many incredible mentors. I've been very, very blessed and grateful for the mentors that I've had, but I sought them out because number one, they inspired me. Number two, they've achieved a level of success that I saw that would be helpful to where I wanted to go. And other times they didn't have anything in common. And so you learn something from these individuals. And it's like a win-win on both ends, right? And I think that's something too. Like when you're entering into that relationship, um, they also get something back from you. And, so don't forget to own your value in that piece as well, is that you are bringing something to the table. There's something that's, when somebody asks you to mentor them, there's a sense of pride. Like,
Mhm.
don't be afraid of asking them to mentor. And, not all the time do people have the extra capacity to do it. And that's okay too.
Sure.
Doesn't mean
Sure.
that they don't want to, but, and there's a time frame too. You might outgrow your mentor.
Mhm.
So
True.
I've come up against that. And so, a season or, like there's people on your journey. And they may not be there for forever. It's just to get to that next hurdle. But know your value when you go into that relationship.
I love that. And being able to ask a question you might get a no to, a no or a not now. That's okay, right? We do need to advocate for ourselves though and
I
ask.
think I'm the queen of no's, to be honest with you. Like, I'm
Good.
like, no, you mean not right now? Okay, great.
Amazing. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not the worst thing we could hear. Oh my goodness. Well, I could talk to you all day. However, yeah, I'm going to respect your time. I did want to take a minute on behalf of everybody watching right now to express our sincerest gratitude to you, Monica. Your presence here today has been a real privilege. I have been taking notes myself because, as we've just discussed, as a business owner, it's you're always learning. Your insights, passion, dedication, and commitment to empowering women in business have really been enriching to this discussion. And we're all inspired by your journey, your resilience, and your commitment to creating this positive change and really achieving that vision. Your willingness to share your experiences, expertise with us has really left a mark on this webinar. So we are very grateful. Thank you so much for your time, wisdom, and dedication. It's very clear you are dedicated to advancing women in business. Very honored to have had you as our guest. Thank you so much. Everyone, give a virtual round of applause to Monica for her exceptional contributions today. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much for being such a fantastic host. It's really nice to be on the other end
Yes,
and
that's
being
right.
interviewed. So I
Thank you.
thoroughly enjoyed myself. And thank you to the Canada Business Talks team. You guys did a great job.
They did. Thank you so much, Monica. All right. I'm looking forward to looking into a lot of that advice, and I hope you are all as well. I want to take a moment before we wrap everything up. I do want to close out by thanking our sponsors, our exclusive banking partner, RBC, our exclusive shipping partner, UPS, our exclusive accounting software partner, Xero, our exclusive email partner, Constant Contact Exclusive, our exclusive hospitality partner, IHG Business Edge, and bronze partner, F12.net. I also want to thank every one of you for joining us. Your presence and active participation have really made this webinar a success. It's inspiring to see so many passionate individuals coming together to discuss really important topics. for small business success. And today that was with our guest, Monica Kretschmer. Your engagement, thoughtful questions, and insights have created a dynamic and enriching atmosphere. It's really helped us all learn a little bit more. And in today's rapidly changing business landscape, your commitment to continuous learning and growth is commendable. You know, we were talking a lot about growth today. So by investing your time and energy in events like this, you demonstrate your dedication to staying ahead of the curve and striving for excellence in all of your endeavors. So as we conclude today's session, I want you to continue this conversation. All of those bits of advice that Monica gave, let's start to implement them and explore new possibilities for your small business journey. I hope you're as inspired as I was. Thanks again for your participation. We look forward to welcoming you back to future Canada Business Talks webinars as we continue to explore and empower the world of small business together. Wishing you continued success and prosperity. I'm Alyssa Lansdale, and we'll see you next time.